Right, 27 April 2022, and I'm joined by my usual guest, Dr. Feddious Mutenheri. How are you, Doc?
I'm very well, Gambakwe. How are you? And it's a very good evening to all our viewers, wherever they are.
Right, thank you very much, Doctor. And I want us to go straight into today's topic. A lot of Zimbabweans are confused about what is happening in the CCC, and you have seen the tweets. This topic is trending. If you type Congress, there are over 15,000 tweets in the past hour. And this has been the case over the past few weeks. Let me play a video by Ostalos, and we'll use that as a starting point for our discussion. So let's hear what Ostalos is saying in this video.
We're not holding a Congress that doesn't exist. The nomenclature of a Congress itself. I'll give you an example. What if we're going to have a National People's Convention? What if we're going to have an assembly? We are not going to have a Congress. The Congress belongs to MDC, ZANU, and other political formations. The nomenclature of a Congress does not exist in the Citizens Coalition for Change. So it's in the headquarters of ZANU and the Central Intelligence Organization, who in their imagination think we're going to have a Congress and they can deploy their people. Look, we have learned from our past movements. We have learned from our history. Look, we've been in this struggle for 2 decades. Experience is the best teacher. So we know that there are people planning. There is no vacancy in the alternative. There is no program for political power. We've been given a temporary mandate to make sure that we steer this ship towards a democratic breakthrough. So we have no political program around whatever people would want to call a Congress.
Right, Doctor, what Ostalos said here is very, very revealing. First, he says ZANU-PF and CIO, they want to deploy their people in the Congress. Secondly, he says there's no program for power in the CCC. These two are clear. Is Chamisa afraid of being challenged for his leadership position if there's a Congress?
Well, thank you very much, Gambakwe, for that question. I think I have to tackle it from quite various perspectives. Is Chamisa afraid of Congress? Now, Chamisa himself, Advocate Chamisa, has not proclaimed himself on this issue. That's the first thing that we can look at. And one thing that you can realize is that this debate on whether to have a Congress, or actually on when to have it, and whether it is going to be called a Congress or whatever process that the CCC will embark on to set up a clear structure, is led by those who are not even in the CCC itself. And as you can see, Ostalos here giving quite a very clear articulation of what he thinks. And I think here he is not even pronouncing that there won't be any Congress or what have you, but he is just giving actually a derisive questions to those who are trying to lead this kind of debate. That's the one thing. And secondly, it would seem, Gambakwe, that those who are, as it were, trying to stampede the CCC into that so-called Congress, are trying to set an agenda for a timeline or on when this Congress should happen, and an agenda which sort of speaks to say it should happen the way they want it to happen, or the way they know Congresses happen. And therefore, I think Ostalos is responding to that. But you ask, is Chamisa afraid of Congress? One thing, my opinion on this is that I think the Triple C has got a grand strategy, because remember, its critics, its opponents have always said that they do not have a strategy. And I think they have deployed a very confusing strategy for those that think that they will just follow, the known process of forming political parties. And one major strategy which I see, from what I see, is that they've deployed a strategy of double speak. You hear all the people that are pro Triple C, or we have known to be pro Triple C. They are bringing out different kind of views on what the people are clamoring. Others are saying it may not be Congress. Like you hear Ostalos is even saying the nomenclature of Congress may not be what we are going for. It might be a convention. And you hear in another corner, Hopewell saying, no, there shouldn't be a Congress. And you hear Jonathan Moyo in another corner also saying there should be a Congress. You hear Dr. Magaisa saying another thing about the Constitution. And I think this, for me, is a grand strategy which they've deployed to sort of confuse those that want to hear a roadmap that the Triple C has to follow in order, as it were, to infiltrate it. I take you back to when the Triple C was formed. You'd realize that there were many people who were clamoring for Advocate Nelson Chamisa to make a move in the midst or amidst the pounding that was coming from Douglas Monzora, the state, the judiciary, and everybody who was trying to make sure that they destroy whatever the MDC alliance was. And Advocate Nelson Chamisa kept quiet. The silence worked, that when they pulled the rug under the feet of those who thought he did not have a strategy, he announced a movement which has become very, very, popular with and amongst the people. And we are told that even ZEC was shocked that they tried to advise them to go back to their symbols, their structures, and the name of the MDC alliance. And we also know that ZANU-PF was shocked because they never thought they would even think of changing a name. But you know that the background to the formation of that political party was that there were various pronouncements, some coming from BT saying we must maintain the name MDC because the name MDC is a brand. We had other people like Mahere saying that people know their leaders. We had, there was that kind of talk, and as a surprise, they announced the party. So I think even today, that strategy is working. They say once bitten, twice shy. So the Triple C, having travailed this path, they are keeping their cards close to the chest. And Advocate Nelson Chamisa is not scared of any Congress or any convention or any process that will lead to a democratic process of leadership. But I think their strategies unraveling, and I think one can look at their scorched earth policy strategy of literally starving ZANU-PF of the information that they want, and I think it is working. So whether it's a Congress, whether it's a convention, whether it's any gathering or any process of any sort, I think it will come at any time that the Triple C themselves will set a timeline, will set a venue, will set conditions, not any external forces setting it up for them.
Okay, Doc, I'm happy with what you've said. And as I always say, I do not bring you here so that I can push my views on you. I have a whole week in which I talk about the CCC in detail. And if people want to know my opinion, they can go to the videos that I do when I'm alone. Let's go to the opinions let's start with Professor Jonathan Moyo. He's been pro-Congress. And today, Feddious Mutenheri in the Newsday slammed Professor Jonathan Moyo. She says the people who are in the old G40 have got different priorities, whereas the CCC does not have the time for a fight over positions. Who do you think is correct between the two of them? Feddious Mutenheri, Professor Jonathan Moyo. Who has got a sound argument there?
Well, if you listened to my previous response just now, in which I said, I think the CCC is deploying a strategy here, and even its sympathizers, and for which I believe Professor Jonathan Moyo is one. I said they are deploying a strategy of double speak, a strategy in which they will starve those that have got ulterior motives, whether to infiltrate the CCC or to destabilize it, or to deploy their own as it were, spies within the movement. Both of them today, I cannot falter them. And in any case, in any democratic process, there is a need for various views, because remember, this is a period leading to any process that will see the setting up of structures within the CCC. So if you see this kind of debate, let's not pitch each of them against the other. It is both speaking, their opinions, which is a very healthy democratic debate. So I think if you listen to what Professor Moyo is saying, quite very right, that congresses or conventions, whatever you would like, have been known as old as the democratic process itself, because it is a platform or a jamboree in which Democrats or democratic champions, gather and vote or elect those that they want them to represent. So Professor Jonathan Moyo, in what he's saying, is totally right. And if you look at what Advocate Mutenheri is saying, she is basically saying we can't be stampeded into that process, and our priority at the moment is to rebuild. Our priority at the moment is to mobilize the masses, and she is not denying that such a process will happen. But all she is saying is that the priority is set by others. It's not our priority at the moment. We will define our agenda. We will define or delineate our own conditions for that Congress or that process, whatever it would be. And I think both of them are exercising what I can call an exciting, an exciting debate, a democratic debate, if you like, Gambako.
Okay, Doc. Now let's go back to what Ostalo said. Before I go to my next question, I know some people joined after. I want people to hear what Ostalos is saying. And I know it's very difficult to understand what he's saying, but you have unpacked. So let's hear what he's saying in terms of what you have already said. I think the context is going to be different to many people who are listening.
We're not having a Congress that doesn't exist. The nomenclature of a Congress itself. I'll give you an example. What if we're going to have a National People's Convention? What if we're going to have an assembly? We are not going to have a Congress. The Congress belongs to MDC, ZANU, and other political formations. The nomenclature of a Congress does not exist in the Citizens Coalition for Change. So it's in the headquarters of ZANU and the Central Intelligence Organization, who in their imagination think we're going to have a Congress and they can deploy their people. Look, we have learned from our past movements, we have learned from our history. Look, we have been in this struggle for 2 decades. Experience is the best teacher. So we know that there are people planning. There is no vacancy in the alternative. There is no program for political power. We have been given a temporary mandate to make sure that we steer this ship towards a democratic breakthrough. So we have no political program around whatever people would want to call a Congress.
Right. I think Ostalos has expressed 5 fears. The fear of ZANU-PF, the fear of CIO, the fear of a challenge on Chamisa, the fear of a program for power, and the fear of confusion. So those are 5 fears that Ostalos has expressed here. Do you agree? Do you agree, Doc, that this is what he's saying? They are motivated by a fear of these 5 things happening. And Mahere has added another fear, a fear of a focus on internal positions instead of a focus on the bigger picture. So there's basically about 6 fears that they're expressing here. Doc, are these real fears or are these manufactured fears? Can something be done? Let's say you were Chamisa. What would you do given the current situation? These guys who are speaking for the CCC, are they expressing the position of the whole party or the position of a few individuals?
Well, thank you very much again, Gambakwe, for your question. But what I want to firstly say is that if there is any fear, it is the fear that ZANU-PF has on the CCC, in which, or the critics who are trying to stampede the CCC into making a process, or into putting the cart before the horse. So I don't think he is expressing any fear, but he is taunting. He is taunting those that probably have an agenda on what the CCC processes would be. But let me also, I will not run away from the issues you are raising. The issues you are raising about Ostalos, and you pick 5 things which you call fears. Definitely they are not fears, but what he is basically saying is that allow the CCC to go through its process, because those who are calling for Congress don't realize that even if there is going to be a Congress or a convention, there must be representatives there. And where do those representatives come from? Those representatives come from the grassroots. And the CCC is barely 3 months old. And just like people were clamoring or were actually deriding them that they do not have strategy, right now, as we know, they are on a rural mobilization program. And I'm sure that program will culminate in some sort of processes, which again will bring about grassroots leaders from there. And a build up of all the processes from the rural mobilization program, and obviously an urban mobilization program, will bring about a sort of, if you like, structures, which then will culminate into a convention in which a leader of the citizens, or who would represent the citizens, or I would like to call the foot that will go forward to represent all the citizens, will then be chosen by consensus. And what he is saying basically is that do not try to thrust or to put upon the CCC what you know happens in other political parties. We have our own process that we are building up. And what I can only say is that let's let them build it up. And Ostalos is clear on that we are building it. And at at the opportune time, that process will come about. People will see it. And if anyone thinks that Advocate Nelson Chamisa is scared of any challenge, I think they live in dreamland. Here is a man whose political life was under siege for the past 2 years, whose political activities was restrained, restricted, and at times even subdued. We saw when he tried to move around provinces that the state, together with ZANU-PF, deployed their violent machinery. But the past by-election in itself showed and revealed who has the widespread support of the people. So I don't think the question on Advocate Nelson Chamisa, hesitating or being scared of any challenge exists. The people out there know who the leader is, so that question does not arise at all. And Gambakwe, I think the issue, the main answer to this question is that the CCC is simply trying to set their agenda for their processes, period.
Okay, Doc, I think let's bring this to an end. This is a developing topic. And in my own opinion, as I've said, I think Chamisa has got one serious problem: the inability to build systems. Mark my word, Doc, this is one of the biggest undoings of Nelson Chamisa. A system is made up of structures, processes, policies, all these things that you need for proper governance. And Chamisa has always failed when it became necessary to build these structures. He's always forced at the end. You will see what will happen here. There will be something that will force Chamisa to hold a Congress before the 2023 elections. It will happen. We'll sit here and we'll discuss it. And if this doesn't happen, I'm going to buy you a beer. I'll personally come to Botswana and I'll buy you some. Yeah. I've told you before that Chamisa makes decisions in a way that he even himself doesn't understand. Like, he takes so long to make a decision. He lets all these people around him give him influence. You remember what they said about Tsvangirai? That he listens to the last person to speak to him. For Chamisa is the opposite. He is always the last person to come up with a decision. But the decision that he comes up with is always opposite to what everyone else has been saying. The advisors that come, look at Magaisa. Magaisa is a very smart man. He said there must be a constitution first. Up to this very day, the CCC does not have a constitution. The members have not seen it. Do you see how bad that is, Doc?
Okay, firstly, I want to take you on your offer, and I think I'll keep reminding you, because I think exactly the opposite of what you said will happen. Secondly, I've already alluded to the fact that what you see happening within the CCC, firstly, can be looked at as democratic debate. This is a movement that is in the making. This is a movement that is building up. So there is need to hear from all pundits, from all those with scholarly thought and political thought and practical thought on how the movement can run. So when you hear Dr. Magaisa saying his views, and when you hear Ostalios speaking his views, you hear Professor Moyo speaking his views, take it as a healthy process which will build up to a process that the CCC will come up with. And that is the first thing that I have to say to you. And secondly, and probably lastly as we end, it is that the CCC has done well with its strategy of starving ZANU-PF of information. And Advocate Nelson Chamisa has done well by keeping his silence where he is forced to speak and probably pronounce on his strategy before he has set up his strategy well. And that has worked. And I see this working very well this time around. And let's see and let's wait when all the critics will be shocked and astounded when a very unique process which will lead up to the formation of good structures within the CCC comes to the fore. And I can tell you today that it will be a surprise. And by then, I think you should be able to drive to Botswana for with your beer, Gambagwe. Thank you very much.
Yeah, Doc, you know, that last point you just mentioned of starving ZANU-PF of information. I think many people don't understand the Zimbabwe Central Intelligence Organization. In fact, they don't understand Zimbabwe Intelligence. Those guys are very smart. Like Zimbabwe Intelligence is one of the most smartest intelligence agencies in Africa here. I do not think they would wait for a Congress to get information about what's happening in CCC. Probably half of the guys in leadership in CCC are feeding information to CIO. I don't even see what Chamisa is doing. What Ostalos is saying about CIO and ZANU-PF, to me, it makes no sense. And I think that part, they need to remove it. The portion about Chamisa being challenged and Mahere being challenged, I think that's what they should be more afraid of. Because if they open the process up, someone like me could challenge Chamisa. Someone would challenge Mahere, who wants to be vice president, and it would be chaos. I think that is what really they should be afraid of, not CIO.
No, Gambagwe, I think I need to quickly respond to you on that. Exactly the point that I've always raised, that you see, you sort of brag about the so-called intelligence that we have, and you honestly think that they are smart. It is exactly this politics, this toxic politics that I think the CCC is dealing with. Because look, if our intelligence was smart, their focus should not be on politics, especially on alternative politics, which should be a democratic process. Our intelligence should have intelligence on food security in the country. Our country is facing starvation and hunger. They are facing a famine for which our intelligence does not have any focus and give information to the state. No, our intelligence does not have focus on economy, on the economic aspects of our economy, which is going down. They do not bring that information because they are focusing on the wrong priorities. Our intelligence is not smart because they do not focus on the real social and economic issues that should, be brought to those who lead the country to deal with. Our intelligence do not necessarily focus on the external threat to our state. That is where the misplaced priorities are. But look, because you think they are smart because they focus on an alternative, what should be a democratic alternative, which provides an alternative government. That, for me, that is not smart. That is politics of the old. That is a politics of antiquity, which we should not even be talking about. If I was going to brag about our intelligence, it should not be an intelligence that is feared for brutally dealing with what should be alternatives of the state. So for me, Gambagwe, that falls away even. It actually reveals and exposes what is wrong about our politics. It exposes what is dead about our politics, which I think the CCC is now logically dealing with. And as time unfolds, as events unravel, we shall see who is trying to set the real politics, what real politics in Zimbabwe should be like. And I think on that, the CCC needs to be applauded, because they are setting up a different culture, a new culture of democratic debate, of how politics should be done within organizations.
All right, Doc. I think one day we should have a whole session on Zimbabwe Intelligence, because I think most guys here, they don't know what Zimbabwe Intelligence is. And they don't know how our country has been able to operate under sanctions for so long without collapsing. This is really something I want to have a discussion with many people. And for example, if you compare Zimbabwe Intelligence with South Africa Intelligence, the things that you are telling me now about Zimbabwe Intelligence and what is happening here in South Africa in terms of the intelligence agencies here, I think this is something that we need to discuss in detail. Many people in Zimbabwe, they talk politics. For example, Australos, they don't have a clue what Zimbabwe Intelligence is all about and how much information they have. You know that there's a whole hard drive full of video right now from a lodge in Harare, right?
So we hear.
Okay. Some of the people that hard drive, they're going to shock you. That's why I'm saying to you.
Listen, Gambakwe, that is exactly, listen, Gambakwe, that is actually the toxicity that has to be ejected from our politics, because as you brag about our intelligence, that it is all wrong. It is all wrong, Gambakwe, because you are saying we managed to not to collapse under sanctions or whatever the past 2 decades. Are you saying we did not collapse? Don't you know about how the state looted people's bank accounts? Don't you know when around 2008, many people woke up with their hard-earned monies looted by the state because the economy had collapsed? And Gambako, when you say that also, I realize that there is lack thereof of what the intelligence should be doing. The intelligence is an arm of the state which should seek the protection of all the individuals, of all the citizens, of all of us in various sectors that include education, food security, in healthcare, in external threats, but not in bragging, in exposing the private lives of people. And I can tell you that hard drive, all it does is another episode of the Ari Ben Menashe debacle. It's another episode of what we see happening with Bishop Pius Nuwe. That is the old politics, Gambakwe. We are saying the new intelligence should support a healthy debate among political parties within a country and protect everybody, not individuals, not partisan politics, not partisan political organizations. The CCC should be protected by the same intelligence, because the intelligence is for the state. Now, there would be no respect for intelligence then if people have to brag about how it is used to interfere with citizens that are well-meaning, that are pursuing their happiness, that are pursuing their means of bringing a healthy diversity to our country. So for me, that is why it is feared, and intelligence should not be feared. It should be respected for the work that it does to protect the state in all the aspects.
Okay, I want to end with the comment by Tendai Mayenga. He's saying, don't joke CIO repazim. Ipapo garai pasim kuru. I agree with him. And I think that is the takeaway from Ostalo's sessions.
You know why he says that? You know why
Yeah.
he says that? It is because what this most Zimbabwean my fellow citizens are used to is that the intelligence duty is to instill fear in the citizens. It is to instill so they know that when they discover these funny things and then they intimidate people. That is how intelligence should work. No, Gambakwe, there should be a reformation on how it works. There should be a reformation on what its priorities are, and particularly referring back to the issue of politics. My point is simply that it should protect all citizens who aspire to lead the country. It must gather information, except if they have information that there is a direct threat to the state, in which they need to bring such information to those that have to deal with, but not to just try and expose for the sake of embarrassment those that are in the alternative, simply because they do not agree with them, simply because they are working for the alternative. That is my point.
Okay, Doc. It's been a very interesting discussion. The CCC, through its two spokespersons, has said that they're not going to have a Congress. And this is in direct contradiction to their main advisors, especially Dr. Magaisa and Professor Jonathan Moyo, very respected people in terms of understanding the politics of Zimbabwe. And this topic has been trending. Just go to Twitter now and type Congress. Over 15,000 tweets an hour for the past week. Thank you very much, Doc, for giving your insights. And I'll be having you again back on Tuesday next week. Good night, Doctor. And good night, everybody.
And good night to all our viewers. Thank you.
We're not having a Congress that doesn't exist. The nomenclature of a Congress itself. I'll give you an example. What if we're going to have a National People's Convention? What if we're going to have an assembly? We are not going to have a Congress. The Congress belongs to MDC, ZANU, and other political formations. The nomenclature of a Congress does not exist in the Citizens Coalition for Change. So it's in the headquarters of ZANU and the Central Intelligence Organization, who in their imagination think we're going to have a Congress and they can deploy their people. Look, we have learned from our past movements. We have learned from our history. Look, we have been in this struggle for 2 decades. Experience is the best teacher. So we know.
Uyo uko kuno apo